would you like to start? Are you ready to start?
Yes, if I can. I'm stuck in a car park at Watford Gap service station because I've had a bit of a nightmare journey coming back from London today, where I was recording the latest edition of Palestine Declassified. I've got myself an electric car, and the infrastructure is not what it should be, and I had to queue for ages, and then the charging point wouldn't accept my bank card, and then I had to wait for about an hour to get through to the bank. So it's been an absolute nightmare. I should have been back in Derby now with my feet up and relaxed and everything, but I'm not. So I'm trying to sort of improvise from the passenger seat of my car at Watford Gap service station. But let me just sort of briefly say, then, given the circumstances that I'm sort of speaking from, in terms of my take on this. I mean, clearly this is an international outrage, and in my opinion, the imprisonment of the Kononovich brothers should have led to an outpouring, an outcry by the left across the globe, but certainly in the UK. But it's been met with stony silence, and I suspect that many people on the left in Britain are unaware of actually what's happened. People have been subjected to, as people who are on the call tonight who live in the UK will know, relentless propaganda about the situation in Ukraine, and consequently this is really not surfaced other than very much at the fringes. So it's important, I think, this meeting this evening to try and draw attention to what's happened, and hopefully people who watch this will take the message out and try to bring some pressure to bear to bring this case to the wider attention of the public at large, but also to policymakers. But of course, I think we know that the Zelensky regime is an authoritarian, corrupt regime, a regime that came to power, as we know, initially through a US and EU-backed coup. Again, this is something which most people in the United Kingdom are blissfully unaware of.
Chris, you just muted for some reason.
Yeah, sorry, somebody was trying to ring me and it cuts out when somebody rings. So sorry about that. So I think people are unaware of the history of it, and so it's important, I think, that those of us on the left, and I see Steve Sweeney is on the call this evening, and the Morning Star do a great job, I think, in trying to put an alternative narrative out there. And it is really important that all of us stand up, because I and many others who do dare to speak against the prevailing view are demonized, smeared, and referred to in this instance as Putin apologists. But we have a situation in Britain where the political class isn't fit for purpose. You've got two of the mainstream parties, two political parties, a bit like in the United States with the Democrats and the Republicans. The two mainstream parties in Britain are the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, and they're essentially two corporate war machine political parties. We tried to move the dial a bit when Jeremy Corbyn became the leader, but as I think people will be well aware, that unfortunately ended in disaster, and Corbyn was forced out. And so now we're faced with a situation where the party which is notionally on the left in Britain, the Labour Party, is a party that, oh, excuse me, that's my sat nav now cutting in. It is a party which is very little different to the Conservative Party. It's a party that supports the military industrial complex. It's a party that supports the neoliberal economics. And I saw some photographs today of the leader, Sir Keir Starmer, a member of the Trilateral Commission, dressing up as a toy soldier. So it's unlikely that we're ever going to hear any dissenting voices from the Labour benches at a time when Britain is facing a cost of living, not a crisis, but a catastrophe for millions of people. And yet we're seeing a situation where Britain is sending public money, using public money to prolong this war in Ukraine, in spite of the fact that the Zelensky regime is the most corrupt in Europe, in spite of the fact that it is an incredibly authoritarian regime, in spite of the fact that opposition political parties have been banned, imprisoned, Same's happened to media, and the case that we're talking about this evening, the Kononovich brothers, is just the tip of the iceberg. And so I think it's really incumbent on those of us in the labor movement to speak out and to push, senior figures in the labor movement, not just those in the political side of the labor movement in terms of the so-called Labour Party, but also the trade union leadership and the Trade Union Congress, the TUC. I think they've been left wanting. I mean, where are they? They should be speaking out on the Kononovich case, but on the wider issue about this conflict in Ukraine, which should never have started in the first place. Could have easily been avoided. It could be stopped very easily, in my opinion, now. And that's where I think the pressure should be being brought to bear by the trade union leadership and by the trade union and wider labour movement, in order to draw attention to this case and to get the message out to the wider general public about what is happening, because this cost of living catastrophe that is befallen many people, I mean, the media again is like a conspiracy of silence. People aren't making the connection between the sanctions against Russia and the ballooning price of energy. Of course, we know that the energy companies are profiteering at the same time, but there is a real link there, I think. And, we need to be, in my opinion, speaking out on these issues, in spite of all the abuse that we get for doing so, because, if we're not going to do it, then nobody else will. And, this situation is only going to get worse. And, people like the Kononovich brothers, essentially, kind of going to, to some extent, be relying on voices like ours to actually draw attention to their case, to shame the Zelensky regime, because there's a complete travesty of justice. So what I would be urging anybody, watching this evening, who are trade union activists involved with the Labour movement, and certainly if they're members of the Labour Party, if anybody's still, I don't know why anybody's continued to remain a member of the Labour Party, because it's frankly lost any sort of its earlier or initial commitment to speak up for the working class and the Labour movement, but people still are members of it. It's really incumbent on you, on all of us, to use your position in the Labour movement to put pressure on our leaders in the trade union movement, in the political movement, to be bringing this case to the fore, so that we can, hopefully, it can benefit from the kind of oxygen of publicity. So that would be really my take, just as a starter for 10. Apologies that I'm not as prepared as I was hoping to be for this evening's meeting, but I thought it was important that, even though I wasn't able to get back and get properly prepared in my at my home in Derby, that I at least showed my support and solidarity for the Kononovich brothers, albeit from a M1 service station car park at Watford Gap. So thanks for inviting me on today, and I'll look forward to listening to the